Welcome back to the Quarterly Call. All content is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with an investment professional. Okay, so we are jumping straight into something, well, it's something pretty major today. A huge update from Advanced Micro Devices, AMD. They've finalized this massive strategic agreement with OpenAI. And when we say massive, it's truly monumental. It really signals a completely new kind of alignment, financially and technically, between a chip maker and, a leading AI company. We've been following this AI build-out really closely, haven't we? But the way AMD's CEO framed it, she called AI the most transformative tech in, 50 years?
That's right, 50 years.
And that what we're seeing now is basically the biggest deployment of compute capacity ever in history. And this AMD OpenAI partnership, it feels like it's right at the heart of that engine room.
It absolutely is. And I think our job today really is to cut through the hype a bit and figure out what monumental actually means here, like the details.
Right.
We need to look at the terms, the sheer scale. We're talking gigawatts here, like a power station 6 gigawatts.
6 gigawatts.
Yeah. And maybe most interesting for the future, that financial structure. It's really novel, involving stock warrants. It tells us a lot about where high-end AI processors and systems are headed competitively.
So it's not just OpenAI buying chips from AMD.
No, not at all. This is way beyond a simple sales contract. It's a blueprint for, strategic codependence, really, in this incredibly high-stakes AI race.
Okay, so if you take just one thing away from this today, it should probably be this. This isn't just a purchase order. It's deep, multi-generational. It's designed to basically lock the futures of AMD and OpenAI together.
A shared destiny, almost.
Yeah.
Financially, technically. Their success is now tied together for the next, 5 years? Maybe longer. All right, so let's dive into the scale. The announcement itself talks about a definitive agreement, multi-year, multi-generation, and the explicit goal to put AMD right at the center, the heart of this global AI infrastructure build-out. We're not talking about, selling a few thousand GPUs here and there.
No, this sounds more fundamental, like becoming a core utility provider for AI.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, AMD wasn't exactly starting from scratch here. They made a point of highlighting their existing momentum.
Right. They mentioned something like 7 of the top 10 AI model builders were already using AMD Instinct GPUs in some way.
Correct. 7 out of 10. That's significant. And that kind of validation was almost certainly needed for OpenAI to make a commitment this big.
And they named names, too, didn't they? Mentioning big deployments already happening with Microsoft, Meta, Oracle.
Tesla, XAI.
Yeah.
The fact that the biggest players, the hyperscalers and the frontier labs, had already started using and validating the Instinct platform, especially the MI300 series.
Yeah.
Well, that laid the groundwork.
So for OpenAI, it wasn't necessarily a huge leap into the unknown, more like stepping on the accelerator with the platform that was showing promise, even if it's still, evolving.
Precisely. Now, the scale itself, 6 gigawatts. 6 G to of AMD Instinct GPUs. We really need to pause on that number.
Yeah, gigawatts. That's not usually how we measure computer chips, is it? That's power plant talk.
It is.
Yeah.
It's utility scale language. Think about a large nuclear power plant, or maybe the energy needs of a big city. That's the kind of power we're discussing.
Wow.
So committing to 6 GW of compute, it implies so much more than just the chips themselves. First, you need the physical space. Huge data centers built for this kind of density.
Okay.
Second, you need power. Massive long-term power purchase agreements, PPAs. We're talking billions of dollars in guaranteed energy supply, potentially for decades. This isn't IT buying, it's industrial planning.
So just doing some quick math, if all 6 GW were running at once, the electricity needed is like a decent-sized country.
Right. Something like that, yeah. A medium-sized European country is a reasonable comparison. It really highlights that this AI boom is an industrial transformation, not just a software trend. The chip is just one piece of a massive infrastructure puzzle.
Okay, so within that 6 GW, what specifically are they getting?
Good question. OpenAI is specifically named as the lead customer for 2 key next-generation AMD products. First, the Instinct MI450 Series GPU.
The next big thing after MI300 0350.
Right. And second, importantly, the Helios rack-scale solutions.
So not just the chips, but the whole pre-built system. Servers, cooling, networking, everything.
Exactly. They're buying the integrated system. Fully engineered racks, likely with liquid cooling, all the interconnects, pre-validated by AMD. That's crucial because it massively cuts down deployment time and integration headaches for OpenAI.
Makes sense. And the timeline for this huge rollout.
It's not immediate. Deployment starts in the second half of 2026. That's when the first gigawatt of capacity comes online.
Just the first gigawatt, which on its own would probably be the biggest deal AMD had ever done before this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Historically, a gigawatt deal would be unprecedented. So that first GW sets the benchmark, and then the remaining 5 will follow based on hitting various milestones.
Now, you mentioned this is more than just a transaction. What makes it so strategically aligned?
It's the depth of the technical alignment. AMD isn't just a supplier, they're becoming a core strategic compute partner. The engineering teams are working incredibly closely.
Oh, so?
They're aligning future roadmaps. Hardware design, yeah, but also the ROCm software stack, networking strategies, system-level scalability, the whole 9 yards. The goal is to build this planetary scale infrastructure that just works flawlessly at massive scale.
And this working relationship, it wasn't built overnight.
No, there's history here. It
Yeah.
started back with the MI300 and MI350 series. Lots of joint work on ROCm, AMD's open software stack, and also on open source tools like Triton.
Okay.
But here's a really key point from the materials.
Okay.
OpenAI was apparently a key contributor to the design requirements for the MI450 GPU and those Helios racks.
Wait, really? So OpenAI didn't just give feedback, they actually helped spec out the next-gen hardware they're now buying.
That's the implication. They helped tailor the silicon and the system designed to meet their specific needs for future AI models, both training and inference. That level of co-design, it practically guarantees the product fits the customer's needs before it even ships.
Wow. That's a level of partnership you don't often see.
It really is. And because of all this huge 6 GW commitment serves as definitive validation for AMD. It's a giant signal to the market.
Saying what, basically?
Saying that AMD GPUs, combined with their open software stack, deliver the goods, they offer the performance, and, critically, the total cost of ownership, the TCO, that the world's most demanding AI labs need for these massive at-scale deployments.
TCO again. Why is that so important at this scale, more than just peak speed?
Because at 6 GW scale, even tiny inefficiencies add up to enormous costs. Think power consumption, cooling. If you can be just a little bit more efficient per unit of compute, you save potentially billions over the lifetime of the system.
And the MI450 is supposed to be good at that.
The chiplet architecture helps a lot there. Compared to older monolithic designs, it can offer real advantages in power efficiency, maybe cooling needs. That superior TCO profile is arguably the only way a company like OpenAI can even afford a 6 GW commitment. They have to optimize for long-term cost efficiency.
Okay, let's shift gears to the money side of things, because the numbers involved here are, well, they force you to rethink AMD's whole growth story.
Absolutely. The direct revenue impact is staggering. Recognition starts kicking in during the second half of 2026, aligning with that first gigawatt deployment.
And the number.
When this agreement really ramps up, it's expected to add, get this, double-digit billions of annual incremental data center AI revenue for AMD.
Double-digit billions annually, just from this one deal.
Incrementally, yes, on top of their existing business.
That's transformative. I mean, AMD had this big goal, right? To reach tens of billions in annual data center AI revenue starting in 2027.
They did. And it was a goal some analysts were, frankly, a bit skeptical about hitting so soon.
But this single OpenAI deal, it basically guarantees they hit that trajectory. It provides like a clear path.
Exactly. It provides a clear line of sight, as they put it. It significantly de-risks that major corporate target. It's a huge validation.
Okay, but then there was this even bigger number mentioned, something about $100 billion. What was that about? That's not just this one deal, surely.
No, that's the ecosystem effect. The thinking goes like this. The scale and, more importantly, the success of this OpenAI partnership will likely unlock significant additional revenue, both from existing customers and new ones.
How so? Like a halo effect?
Precisely. When OpenAI, arguably the gold standard in frontier AI, places such a massive bet on AMD's MI450 platform and proves it works at 6 GW scale, well, that removes a ton of risk and uncertainty for everyone else.
Right. Every other big cloud provider, every national AI initiative, every large enterprise thinking about their own AI infrastructure, they're all watching this.
They absolutely are. So if OpenAI succeeds here, it makes the decision to go with AMD much easier for others. That potential acceleration in adoption across the board is what leads to that forecast, the potential to generate well over $100 billion in revenue across the entire AMD ecosystem over the next few years.
So that $100 billion is like the total market opportunity they think this unlocks for them, capturing significant market share.
That seems to be the implication. It's about market share capture, fueled by this massive validation point, not just fulfilling one enormous order.
Okay, big revenue. What about profit? Does this actually make them money, or is it a low-margin grab for scale?
No, they were very clear. The deal is expected to be highly accretive to AMD's non-GAAP earnings per share right from the start, from the first revenue recognized.
Highly accretive. Why? How does that work with such a big deal?
It comes down to operating leverage.
Okay, bring that down for us. Operating leverage. What does that mean in this context?
Sure. Think about all the money AMD has already spent. Huge fixed costs, right? Research and development for the MI450 chip, developing the ROCm software, setting up the super advanced supply chain for 2-nanometer manufacturing.
Right, billions already invested over years.
Exactly. Once those massive fixed costs are largely sunk or covered by the existing business, any new high-margin revenue on top, especially revenue measured in double-digit billions per year, well, a very large chunk of that flows straight through to the bottom line.
Because the underlying costs are already paid for, more or less.
Largely, yes. Management essentially views this entire 6GW deal as all incremental business. Since the foundational R&D and infrastructure investments are mostly in place, a disproportionately large slice of this new OpenAI revenue bypasses those initial costs. It hits the gross margin line hard, generating substantial operating income and gives a big boost to earnings per share.
So it's like adding a huge profitable new wing onto an existing factory that's already running.
That's a good analogy. It's the financial definition of getting exponential returns on your prior investments. Very powerful for profitability.
Okay, this brings us to what might be the most fascinating and maybe controversial part of this whole announcement, the financial engineering, that performance-based warrant structure.
Yes, this is really where the deal breaks new ground, certainly at this scale. It fundamentally changes the typical customer-supplier dynamic.
So the basics, AMD is issuing OpenAI warrants, options to buy AMD stock in the future. How many?
Up to 160 million shares of AMD common stock.
160 million shares. That's a lot of potential stock.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
And the rationale given was very explicit. It's all about aligning incentives. They called it a win-win-win structure.
How does giving away potentially millions of shares align incentives? Is it just a fancy discount?
It's much more than a discount. The idea is to make OpenAI's financial success directly tied to AMD's success, specifically the success of this deployment and AMD's resulting stock performance.
So it gives OpenAI a powerful reason to make sure these AMD GPUs work perfectly and get deployed smoothly.
Exactly. Think about it. OpenAI's own engineers and operations teams now have a vested financial interest, a potentially massive one in working closely with AMD, optimizing performance, hitting deployment targets quickly. If the rollout hits snags or performance isn't great, OpenAI's potential payout from these warrants gets delayed or even reduced.
Okay, so how does the vesting actually work? OpenAI doesn't just get 160 million shares up front, right?
No, definitely not. It's performance-based. The first layer of conditions is tied directly to the physical deployment milestones. The warrant vests in stages or tranches. The very first tranche only vests after OpenAI successfully deploys that initial 1 gigawatt of capacity we talked about.
Okay, proof of delivery.
Right. Then subsequent tranches vest as they hit further major deployment milestones, presumably 2 gigaW, 3 gigaW, and so on. The final largest tranche only vests after the entire 6 gigawatts of compute capacity is successfully deployed.
So AMD only gives up the equity value after OpenAI has physically taken delivery and deployed the hardware. That makes sense.
It guarantees AMD gets the business success before the equity cost fully hits. But then there's the second layer of vesting conditions, and this is the one that really grabbed headlines.
The stock price targets.
Precisely. It's not enough to just deploy the 6GW. Each tranche vesting is also tied to AMD's stock price hitting progressively higher milestones.
And the ultimate target, the big one.
The final tranche, the really big payoff for OpenAI, only vests if and when AMD's stock price reaches $600 per share.
$600 per share. I mean, given where AMD's stock usually trades, that's aiming for the stars, isn't it? That implies a market cap that's almost unimaginable right now.
It is incredibly ambitious, a huge stretch target.
So isn't that a massive gamble for AMD? What if they execute perfectly on the 6GW deployment, OpenAI's happy, the tech works great, but the wider stock market tanks because of, I don't know, a recession? Or maybe investors just don't value AMD that highly for other reasons? Does OpenAI just lose out on that final chunk of value? Couldn't that damage the relationship long term?
That's the critical question, and it's a valid risk. Management sort of addressed this by framing it purely as alignment. That $600 target isn't presented as a guarantee, but more like a shared goal, a
Yeah,
vision.
shared vision.
Yeah, the idea is if this partnership is truly successful at the 6 GPU scale and AMD captures a dominant slice of the AI market as a result, then both companies believe that kind of valuation, that $600 share price, should be achievable and justified.
Okay, so from AMD's perspective, the risk is managed because they only dilute shareholders significantly if two things happen simultaneously.
Exactly. First, they have to deliver the product, and OpenAI has to successfully deploy all 6 GW. That's the operational success. Second, the market has to recognize and reward that massive success with a corresponding huge increase in the stock price.
So any potential dilution is only triggered if there's already been monumental value creation for existing shareholders. The equity transfer kind of pays for itself in a way.
That's the logic. It aligns shareholder interest with the partnership's success. Plus, there are apparently other conditions too.
More conditions.
Yeah, the materials mentioned that exercising the warrants, actually buying the stock once it vests, is also tied to OpenAI achieving other key commercial and technical conditions. Things deemed crucial for the long-term success of the Instinct deployment.
Wow. Okay, so it's layers upon layers of performance requirements, really tying them together.
Deep contractual complexity, all aimed at enforcing continuous performance and alignment. And the whole warrant structure is set up over 5 years, reinforcing that long-term commitment.
One other thought. With OpenAI needing billions upon billions for compute, could this warrant structure basically be a way for them to self-fund some of that? Like, get the stock, sell it, and use the cash to pay AMD.
That was a question that came up, but management pushed back on that interpretation. They were pretty clear that the primary purpose isn't to provide CapEx funding for OpenAI.
So what is the primary purpose, again?
Alignment. Pure and simple. Ensuring strategic codependence. Making sure both companies are laser-focused on making this deployment a massive success. Now, what OpenAI does with the stock, once it vests and they exercise the warrants, that's up to them. They could hold it, they could sell it. But the deal's core function, according to AMD, is driving performance through shared incentives.
All right, let's shift focus a bit to the tech itself, the hardware, the software. What actually makes a 6GW deployment even feasible? This isn't just about making more chips. It requires serious innovation across the board, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't just stack up 6 GW worth of GPUs without immense coordinated engineering effort. Hardware, software, networking, the entire stack has to work together seamlessly.
And the software side, that seems like a particularly big win for AMD here.
It really is. Probably one of the biggest takeaways. The core of AMD's software offering for AI is ROCm, their open source stack.
Which historically has been seen as maybe lagging behind the competition's proprietary software.
That's been the perception, yes. Less mature, smaller ecosystem. But this deal required intense collaboration between AMD and OpenAI engineers, specifically on ROCm. They had to ensure it wasn't just functional, but truly capable of running the most advanced, complex AI models out there, and doing it reliably at this unprecedented gigawatt scale.
So this OpenAI deployment is essentially the ultimate stress test for ROCm.
Exactly. It's battle testing the software in the most demanding environment imaginable. Successfully running frontier models at 6 GW scale provides enormous validation. It tells the world that ROCm is ready for prime time, mature enough for the highest stakes AI work.
That feels crucial for challenging the dominance of, closed proprietary software stacks in the AI space.
It is, and it ties into another point. OpenAI's support for Triton.
Triton, what's that?
Triton is an open-source programming language, a DSL domain-specific language developed by OpenAI, actually. It lets engineers write the really critical low-level code for GPUs, the kernels, in a way that's much more portable across different hardware, less tied to one specific vendor's tools.
Ah, so it promotes hardware agnosticism. Makes it easier to run your AI code on different types of chips?
That's the goal. By championing Triton, OpenAI is signaling they prefer diversity. They don't want to be locked into a single vendor's proprietary ecosystem. And AMD embracing and supporting Triton within ROCm is a smart move, aligning with that customer preference.
And the benefit of all this intense software work with OpenAI, it doesn't just help OpenAI, right?
No, that's key. All the improvements, better stability, scalability, performance tuning, efficiency gains made in ROCm to satisfy OpenAI's demands, those improvements flow back into the main ROCm codebase. They benefit the entire AMD AI ecosystem. Every customer using Instinct GPUs, big or small, gets a better, more robust software stack because of the work done for this gigawatt scale deployment.
Okay, turning to the hardware itself, the Instinct MI450 GPU, what's special about it?
Management highlighted its flexibility. There's ongoing debate about whether future AI growth will be mostly in training new models or running existing models, which is called inference.
Right, training versus inference.
The MI450 is designed to be strong at both,
Yeah.
but they did emphasize its particular strengths for inference.
Why inference specifically?
This comes back to that chiplet architecture we mentioned earlier.
How does that help inference?
So inference workloads often depend heavily on memory bandwidth, how fast you can pull data from the chip's memory to feed the compute units. The chiplet design allows AMD to integrate memory interfaces very efficiently, potentially offering more memory bandwidth for the cost compared to traditional designs.
So faster data access means quicker results for inference tasks.
Essentially, yes. Better memory bandwidth reduces latency and increases throughput, which means you can run more inferences per second, lowering the cost per inference. And since many predict inference workloads will grow even faster than training workloads, having a chip optimized for that, offering potentially better TCO for inference, is a big advantage.
But OpenAI will use it for both training and inference.
That's the expectation. They need the flexibility to do both cutting-edge training and then deploy those models efficiently for inference. The MI450 aims to provide that balance.
Makes sense. What about actually building and deploying all this stuff? A 6 GW commitment starting in 2026. That's a massive logistical challenge.
Huge. AMD confirmed they are deep into supply chain planning right now. For the MI450 chip itself, for those complex Helios racks, and for securing the necessary capacity on the advanced 2-nanometer manufacturing processes needed to build the chip, they expressed confidence they can meet the demand.
And where will these 6 GW racks actually live? In OpenAI's own data centers?
Likely not entirely. The expectation is that these deployments will primarily happen within the big cloud service providers, the CSPs, the hyperscalers.
So like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud.
Probably. OpenAI will make the final choice of where to deploy, but AMD stated they're actively working with all the major hyperscalers to make sure their environments are ready to host these MI450 systems. That reflects the reality that most large-scale AI infrastructure today lives in the cloud.
Okay. Now, we talked about the deep alignment, the warrants, but is this deal exclusive? Is OpenAI only buying from AMD now?
No, and this is important. The agreement is explicitly non-exclusive.
Non-exclusive, even with 160 million potential shares on the line. Why?
Management clarified that AMD has the capacity and the plans to deliver this huge 6 GW order while also serving their other major strategic customers.
So AMD can handle both?
That's their claim. But non-exclusivity makes sense for both sides, really. For AMD, the total AI compute market is just too enormous. They can't afford to tie themselves exclusively to one customer, even one as big as OpenAI, if they want to capture significant overall market share.
And for OpenAI?
For OpenAI, relying 100% on a single supplier, especially one whose software platform ROCm is still maturing relative to the main competitor, would be incredibly risky. Non-exclusivity gives them supply chain security, keeps pricing competitive, and allows them to continue using other platforms if needed. It's diversification.
Okay, last point on positioning. Analysts immediately compared this 6 GW deal to reports of a competitor potentially having like 10 GBW of capacity. How did AMD respond to that comparison? Are they falling behind?
Their response was pretty measured. They didn't dismiss the competitor's scale, but they framed their own 6 kW deal, combined with all the other deals they're pursuing for MI450 and Helios with other customers.
Right, the non-exclusive part.
Exactly. They see that total pipeline putting them firmly on a trajectory to capture a significant piece of the future global AI market. 6 gigawatts is the anchor, the major validation, but it's the start, not the end game. They're focused on winning broad market share over time, not just hitting one headline number against a competitor.
It really is an extraordinary moment in the tech landscape, just completely reshaping things. So if we were to boil this whole thing down, the two elements that just jump out are first, that almost unbelievable scale, right? 6 gigawatts, measuring compute, like you measure a power grid.
It redefines scale.
And second, that incredibly innovative, maybe even audacious financial structure, tying success directly to performance milestones and that, frankly, eye-watering $600 stock price target for the final warrant payout.
Absolutely. And that structure, that's what you, listening, should really pay attention to. Why should you care about these complex warrants and vesting schedules? Because this deal sets a new precedent.
How
It
so?
signals that the old way of doing business in high-tech, simple customer buys from supplier might be over, at least for these massive strategic AI buildouts. It's being replaced by this deep, financially incentivized codependence, shared risk, shared reward. This structure isn't just about selling chips. It's a mechanism designed to guarantee mutual focus and flawless execution over many years.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to maybe ponder. If this kind of deep strategic alignment, enforced through performance-based equity, becomes the new standard for securing bleeding-edge compute, what does that mean for everyone else?
What do you mean?
Well, what about smaller AI startups? Or maybe even entire countries trying to build their own sovereign AI capabilities? They probably can't offer a chip supplier warrants on 160 million shares tied to a $600 price target.
Right, they lack that kind of equity leverage.
So does this AMD OpenAI deal structure inadvertently create a kind of two-tiered system where only the existing tech giants, the ones with massive market caps or deep pockets, can actually secure the most advanced next-generation AI hardware through these kinds of tightly aligned, equity-fueled partnerships?
Does it raise the barrier to entry even higher?
Certainly seems like it could concentrate access to the very cutting edge. Definitely something to watch.
Indeed. Food for thought. Thank you so much for tuning into the Quarterly Call. For more episodes, please remember to rate and follow our show. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.